I screwed up. I shouldn't have left the trail. This deep in the woods, if you lose the trail, you might never find it again. But what choice did I have? Someone was calling for help. Was I meant to leave them there knowing that no one else was around? I wish I had. It was getting late when I heard it. The sun was still up, but I had maybe an hour left before it would be dark. I'd been planning to stop soon as I'd found a suitable spot close to the trail to set up camp. But that was when I heard that cry, more like an injured animal than a person. Help, they called. I stopped, unsure I'd heard correctly. Everything was silent, no birds chirping, nothing rustling the leaves. Even the wind had fallen still. Help, the call came again. It was somewhere to my left, clearer this time. Hello, I called, squinting into the shadows beneath the trees but seeing no one. Please, help, the call came again. I stepped off the trail, moving towards the sound of the voice and calling out again. Over here, they responded. It was darker under the trees than I'd expected, but light enough that I wasn't worried about getting turned around. I called out again as I moved deeper into the trees, asking where they were. This way, came the response. Like an idiot, I kept following, chasing this voice that never seemed to get any closer. I don't want to admit how long it took me to realize something was wrong, and by the time I had, the darkness under the trees had grown and everything looked different. I turned and headed back the way I thought I'd come, ignoring the continuous calls of the voice trying to lure me further into the woods. After 10 minutes, I still hadn't found the trail, my trepidation growing with each passing minute as the remaining light slowly faded. Another 10 minutes and I had to accept I wasn't going to find the trail again that night. I found a place to set up my tent and built a small campfire. The voices had stopped calling out to me, but that didn't fill me with much confidence. I had a cold dinner and then settled into the tent for an early night. I woke in the pitch black to the sound of footsteps nearby. I didn't dare move as I listened. The footsteps had stopped and I was left wondering if I'd imagined them. Needless to say, I didn't sleep too well the rest of that night, and I was up and out of the tent at first light. But I had a problem. I wasn't sure which way the trail was, so I did the only thing I could think of. I used my knife to mark a tree. Then each few steps, I marked another tree. I thought I was being clever. I could walk in one direction. If I didn't find the trail, I could go back to where I started and try another direction. Eventually I'd have to find the trail. It couldn't be too far away. I'd been walking for less than 10 minutes when I heard the voice again, calling from somewhere up ahead. I decided to turn back. I'd gone far enough in that direction and found nothing. I wasn't going to let that voice lure me further off course again. I began retracing my steps, following the marks on the tree until I got back to my campsite. Then I kept going, marking the trees as I passed. The voice continued to call after me, the source never seeming to get any further away, but it did seem to move, now coming from far off to my right. At the time I didn't know if it was just paranoia, but I could feel the weight of eyes on me. I tried to tell myself the voice was just a lost pet parrot that had somehow found its way into the wilderness and was for some reason screwing with me. That was the only logical explanation, right? Even so, my mind kept turning to darker thoughts. I tried to ignore them and pick up the pace. I had to find the trail and get as far away from here as possible. It soon became clear the trail wasn't in the direction I was heading, so I turned back, once again retracing my steps and following the slash marks I'd left in the trees. Except, after the first few, the marks had disappeared. It didn't make any sense. I'd been meticulous about cutting the trees, yet no matter how I searched, I couldn't find the next mark. It was at that point that it started to set in just how screwed I was. I only had supplies for maybe another 2 days, 3 at most, and if I got lost in those woods, which I already was, there was a good chance I'd never get out. And that damned voice kept calling to me. "Just leave me alone," I shouted into the trees, and for that moment, the voice seemed to listen. The woods felt eerily silent. Looking back, I'm not sure what I could have done differently other than never leaving the trail in the first place, but that was done, and I had no good options left, so I chose one of the bad ones. It was hard to orientate myself based on the sun, due to the thick foliage above, but I did my best to figure out which direction should approximately be south, and I set off. With any luck, I could make it out of the woods in 2 days, even if my bearing was a little off. It didn't take long before the voice started up again with its calls for help, always trying to lure me off my path. I made sure to ignore it, and if anything, I'd veer away from it, wanting to keep as much distance from it as possible. By the time it started to get dark, I was exhausted. After a quick cold meal, I set up my tent and climbed in, going straight to sleep. I woke to darkness and the sound of running footsteps, light and quiet but clear in the unnatural silence of the woods. They'd run past before falling silent, and then starting up again on the other side of the tent. Whoever was out there wanted me to hear them. I lay in my sleeping bag, clutching my pocket knife and not daring to move. Then the whispers started. Soft and indecipherable, the whispers seemed to come from every direction. I don't know how long I sat there waiting for something to happen, but nothing did. Eventually the footsteps and the whispers faded away. I lay back down, straining my ears and praying to every god I could think of that I'd get out of those woods alive. I must have drifted back to sleep at some point, because when I woke again, it was light outside. I ate a quick meal, then packed up and forced my aching limbs to move, pushing myself faster. That next day was a blur. I pushed through the exhaustion, forcing myself to maintain an unsustainable pace. And still, that voice called to me, but never from the same place. One time it would be to my left, the next time it would be to my right, or behind me. It's like it was circling me, though it never came from in front of me. I took that as a good sign. If it wanted to turn me from my path, I wasn't going to let it. I didn't bother with dinner that night. My dwindling supplies were almost gone, and I was far too tired to make anything. I didn't even set up my tent properly before collapsing into it. Again, I woke to footsteps outside my tent. There were more of them tonight. They surrounded my campsite, coming closer than they had the previous nights. Whoever or whatever they were getting bolder. It was only a matter of time before they came for me. I clutched my knife tight, exhausted but ready. I heard the crunch of one particular set of footsteps coming closer, stopping right outside the back of my tent. The other footsteps fell still, and in the silence I could hear the soft, even breath of someone out there, waiting for me. I don't know if it was the adrenaline or the exhaustion, but I'd had enough, and in a moment of madness, I yanked down the tent zipper and dashed out into the night. What do you want? I demanded, flashing my torch at the back of my tent. There was no one there. The spot where I'd heard the footsteps and the breathing stood completely empty. I spin 360, but see no one. I walk around the tent, examining the ground for footprints, but see none. None of it made any sense. I knew I hadn't just imagined it. And then I heard the voice again, calling from the darkness. Try not to judge me, but I dove back into the tent and cowered there for the rest of the night, the voice playing on repeat in my head. This way, Jack. How the hell did it know my name? I'd spent the last couple of days trying to avoid thinking about what was out there, but that night it was impossible. Something was stalking me, and it wasn't natural. By the time the sun came up, I was a zombie. My movements were sluggish, and it was a fight to reopen my eyes every time I blinked. I forced down my last couple mouthfuls of food and drained the last gulp of water from my bottle. Then I tipped out my bag onto the ground, repacking only the essentials, my empty water bottle and the tent. I'd considered leaving the tent behind. It was one of the heavier things I had, but the thought of spending another night in the woods without it was unbearable. I should have left it behind. It was late in the day when I stumbled into this clearing. At first, I thought the break in the trees was the exit, but that hope was soon crushed. I was starving, dehydrated, and my body was on the verge of mutiny. Still, the sun felt nice on my face. It was the first time I'd really felt it since I'd stepped off the trail and doomed myself. In the middle of the clearing stood 4 young trees, the smallest barely taller than me, while the tallest reached almost 15 foot. I slumped against the slender trunk of the tallest tree and sunk to the ground. The grass was soft. This seemed as good a place as any to die. It took me a while to notice the ratty leather bag, half buried under a root at the foot of the tree, and even then I ignored it, figuring it was just rubbish. But eventually curiosity got the better of me, and I pulled the bag towards me. I don't know what I hoped to find in there. Some food maybe, or a drink. If not water, then maybe something stronger just to help see me off. Disappointingly, all I found was a flask with a dribble of water and a journal with the name Mark Sutton written on the cover. I drained the water from the flask greedily, but the small amount of water did little for my thirst. Still, it was better than nothing. I opened the journal, the elaborate scrawl swimming on the pages before my exhausted eyes. I flipped to the final entry and began to read. Another day and still no way out. I can't keep going. They're coming for me. They're in my head. They've shown me things, horrible things. If you find this, it's probably already too late. But if you can keep going, ignore the voices. Don't go towards them. Don't steer away. They're trying to keep you here. Just ignore them and hope you're heading in the right way. They'll only come once you're weak enough. It's getting dark. I can see them in the tree line now. If you find this, tell my family I'm sorry. Good luck. I put the journal down, my hands shaking. I could hear the whispers again. They were in my head, their words tearing at my mind in a language I didn't recognize. Images flashed in my mind, chainsaws and axes, trees falling and large areas of the woodland being cleared for grazing. I felt their pain and suffering, the hatred for mankind that grew from it. I felt it all. Then I saw a man, lying still in the clearing at night, a leather bag between his legs as the creatures closed in around him. He didn't try to run or fight back. He looked so weak. I saw his stomach ripped open and something shoved inside. Time seemed to speed up as the man lay there dying, his skin hardening and turning brown like the bark of the tree I was sat against. Then as days and nights cycled by, represented by no more than flashes of light and dark, a tree grew from what had been the stomach of the man. The vision changed. Now I was up high, staring down at an endless sea of trees, stretching from one horizon to the other. The vision changed once more. I was back in the forest, at the edge of a clearing. In the middle of the clearing, the last of the daylight shone down on a man sat with his back against a tree. That's when I snapped back to my body, the journal at my feet. I understand now. My fate is already sealed. Just like Mark, I don't have the strength to keep going. They know that as well as I do, and they're coming. I can see them now, lurking in the trees at the edge of the clearing. I'm surrounded. That's why I'm recording this, while I still can. I'm going to put the phone in my backpack. It's waterproof, so should protect it for a while. If anyone finds this, and if you manage to get out and somehow access this recording, please tell Chloe that I love her, and share this story so that others know not to make the same mistake I did. Don't leave the trail. Don't follow the voices.